There's something about this concept which is hard for people to get. I confess. And I'm talking about the physical body here. This isn't complicated. This isn't a euphemism. This isn't a figure of speech. This is talking about the body that walked in here this morning and presumably walks out. There's a sense in which, for as long as I know human beings have been thinking, that there's a desire to escape from the body to some never land up there, which is better than the physical world that we live in. Plato said that 5 centuries before Christ. There's some ideals up here that we need to appreciate and we need to find. In the New Testament times and shortly after in the early church, there was a theological view called Gnosticism, which meant that people looked for some new knowledge which was up here, escaping the real world, that you could really find something that was different and escape the body. We call it getting high. We've got now not only drugs, but all these prescription drugs on which people get high and now are dying. Serious problem. People wanting to get high. My contention, and I hope you bear with me, if your goal is simply to get high on Jesus as an entertainment form, you missed it too. The Christian faith says to us, the physical body is just as important a part as anything else. In fact, in 1 Corinthians 15, Paul talks about the resurrection of the body, and he means this one. And I believe in the context he's saying, in fact, I'm pointing out to you that it includes the resurrection of the body, because what we're really talking about is the resurrection of the whole person in the next life. We're not talking about disembodied souls here. When I was growing up in northern Indiana, on occasion we would visit the Museum of Science and Industry. I don't know if it's still there, but they used to have a diorama. A diorama is kind of like a thing, viewing that you see, of a heart. It was about 10 feet tall, and you could walk through it. And when you to walk through it, it went thump, 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 thump. I mean, I couldn't wait as a little kid. I remember going there. It was just a lot of fun. But what it's saying is that the heart is at the heart of it, and it's the heart of the body, and the body too, we need to commit to God. Sometimes in life, you just need to show up in the body. You know that somebody who's a loved one has passed away, and you need to show up at that funeral or that visiting hour. And you say, oh, I don't know what to say. You know, I'm so inept at this. And you don't say anything sometimes. Sometimes you just need to show up. I am personally a believer in the body count. I believe every body counts. Amen. Everybody counts. Everybody counts physically if you can show up. And sometimes if you're facing some struggle, you just have to show up and comfortably be there. There is no escape from being there. And sometimes it changes your perspective. We like to camp a lot, and we were camping on the Blue Ridge Parkway, and we were up on the mountain ridge, and we looked at one of those overlooking spots just above Lynchburg, Virginia, down where Jerry Falwell used to hold forth when he was still living, and his sons still do. And there was a description up on the mountain about Lynchburg, and it said in the founding days that the people who lived in Lynchburg were fundamentally very different in the foothills of the mountains than the people who lived on the coast were in Virginia from Boston, because on the coast they could get on ships and there was communication and they were more like each other. You get up into the foothills and it's very different. And a light went on in my mind because I was physically there. And I had an insight sometimes you have to be there to get. Jerry Falwell was a product of Lynchburg as much as he was a preacher of the gospel. I would not have had that insight if I had not been there. Sometimes you have to just be there. Having said all of this, the fifth part is relationships. It's in the thrust of love God with all your heart, love your neighbor, and love yourself. You know that if your relationship with God is out of sorts, so is your relationship with your neighbors and yourself. And if you're out of sorts with yourself, you're having trouble with God, aren't you? And it all works together. It's a relational being. God, we say, is three persons. That's a theological word. It doesn't say that exactly in the scriptures, but it's certainly inferred there. That God is Father and Son and Spirit. So we come and say, God has made us as persons. This is an interpersonal relationship business. This is an experience business. This is a business that has to do with relationships with God. And so this too is a part of who we are. Not only this, love God with all your mind and all your heart and all your soul and all your body and all your relationships. But in addition, they all go together. You have to be proactive about your life in all these parts and put them together. I've heard it said, well, I didn't know what to do, so I just prayed on it. And I would say, no. If you don't know what to do, what you can do is pray for it. If you don't know what to do about some person you need to see, you can pray for them. And you know something? Sometimes you show up at the post office the next morning and run right into them. It all begins to work together. So that you have to be proactive about these parts. And you have to say, I'm a whole person. I'm not just a part. I'm not just the part I want. I'm not just the part I like. But I'm a whole person. And I commit myself to God again and again and again. The whole person, not just a part, not just the part we want. One way to say that is living for Jesus, which is like it. We're going to have a song leader here or what? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you, sir.